Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another edition of BadgerBlitz TV. I am Jake Kocorowski, senior writer at BadgerBlitz.com, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics, from the recruiting trail inside Camp Randall Stadium and on the court of the Kohl Center. And guess what, folks? We got a double dose this week of some recruiting Q&A. We appreciate you all tuning in the past months for this. This has been a lot of fun. And guess what? We have the amazing Clint Cosgrove coming back on, recruiting analyst at Rivals.com, who owns the Midwest with all of his coverage. But you've been a busy man, my friend. You're traveling. You're talking to recruits. You're doing commitment videos just before this, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good. And I'm excited. I think this past weekend was, I don't know, the first or second weekend that I hadn't traveled in a month or two. So that was good. And then the good thing is this camp this week will be the Indianapolis camp. I don't have to get on a plane. I'm going to drive there, and it'll be all kids that I know and am familiar with, and probably a lot of Badger targets there as well. So looking forward to that.
Well, that's a tease for next week when we're going to ask you about that, my friend. So just for those that don't know, this is how we do it here on these weekly recruiting Q&As. We're going to have two of them this week. Folks, go to BadgerBlitz.com. It's really fun. Be part of the community there. Every couple weeks, I send out a forum thread saying, y'all, Clint and I are recording this week. What questions from the recruiting trail do you have for Clint? And y'all responded once again. So within that, let's get to it. And looking at this right off the bat, Clint, since you are a proud alum of Madison Edgewood, this is from a subscriber, so shout out for the history lesson there. What does he know about walk-on commit Cam Fane, and what are his impressions of him? So with that being said, Clint, being a former Edgewood alum, what do you see from Cam Fane, one of the newest Wisconsin walk-ons?
I'm wondering if this comes from a friend. Otherwise, that's good research to know that I went to Edgewood. Cam. Well, Cam, as you saw when I played at Edgewood, we were pretty good. We were in state playoffs every year. We were a contender. There was a little fall off for a little bit. I know a lot of that had to do with, one, football in general. The numbers were declining. And two, COVID and all of that stuff. And then there was a coaching change. So that transition. And then all of a sudden, Edgewood becomes a powerhouse again this past year. And a big reason for that is Cam. And the reason I know so much about him is all of my friends who, I went to high school with, who follow Edgewood football very closely. I try to, as much as I can, would ask me about him all the time. Is he going to be a Big Ten player, all this stuff. Cam he's a heck of a player. I mean, he's as good as you're going to get as a walk-on. I think he is a Division I scholarship player at some level, whether it's, high FCS, MAC, lower level Big Ten. So, I mean, he's a heck of a get. Big receiver. I don't know if he's an athlete too. So, I mean, they could probably put him on defense, but he's a playmaker. He's a mismatch. People had trouble guarding him. He made a lot of plays for Edgewood. Pretty much anybody, they could put their best player on him, and he would beat them. He's got a good size, ball skills, good after the catch, just overall playmaker. I expect him to play at Wisconsin. I don't expect him to just, walk on and be on scout team for 4 years. He's probably physically ready to play on special teams right away. Biggest question might be his top end speed. And I think maybe that's why he didn't blow up as much as he could have recruiting wise. But as far as a football player and an athlete, Cam's got a chance to be very good. Like I said, he's a scholarship player somewhere, and Wisconsin's getting a steal with him. I know there were other good players at Edgewood, but he was a difference maker, and I think he can be a difference maker at the next level. So I'm really excited to see what he does at Wisconsin. It might not be right away. It might take some development, but, just physically, athletically, he's probably ready to play special teams if they need him right away. And, I wouldn't rule out within, and it all depends on injuries and depth and all that stuff, but whether it be as a safety, maybe growing into a kind of a hybrid outside linebacker, or a receiver, I see him contributing at some point. And, he's a talented kid and a heck of a get, especially for a walk-on.
And just looking at it too, Wisconsin did announce him as a wide receiver, 6'2", 180. And just for some stats for people that don't know about Cam, for Edgewood last year, 662 receiving yards on just 39 receptions. That's 17 yards per catch, 9 touchdowns. And he also ran for 279 yards on 11 yards per carry with 4 additional scores. And that's all, by the way, courtesy of wisports.net. Just want to make sure that Travis Wilson and the gang over there get that credit for those high school stats on that end. But yeah, it's good. It will be interesting to see. And obviously, Madison Edgewood's also sending another walk-on to Wisconsin in safety, Jackson Trudgeon, which obviously those safety numbers will be needed with the thinness of that depth, that position group that Jim Leonard talked about. And you can find that conversation with Jim Leonard on BadgerBlitz.com's YouTube channel as well. Let's get to the next one then. This happened just, obviously yesterday. JJ Kohl, one of Wisconsin's quarterback targets, Clint, commits to Iowa State. Obviously some family history there with JJ. He visited last week from what we know. And looking at that, are there any other quarterbacks out there on Wisconsin's radar if, since they missed out on Kohl? And I know that John McNamara, our editor, our publishing, our publisher at BadgerBlitz.com had an extensive article as well that y'all can view on BadgerBlitz.com. But in your eyes, what quarterbacks could be on the radar for the Badgers after Kohl committed to the Cyclones?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of guys, in the South and the East, but I'm familiar with a couple of Midwest guys who I think would be great targets. JJ would have been perfect. He's that big quarterback. He can also run a little bit, big arm, perfect for a pro-style offense, that sort of thing. It was an uphill battle just, with his history at Iowa State. His dad's one of the all-time leading scorers there, owner of Kohl's Kicking. He's a legacy. I did a commitment interview with him the night before he committed, and, he would have been a great fit for Wisconsin, but he's not going to be at Wisconsin. And but he did seriously consider the Badgers, and I think if it wasn't for his connections at Iowa State, they would have had a good shot at getting him. 2 guys to me that I'm familiar with that stick out is a kid named Brady. I think it's Dragish, and he's up at De La Salle Collegiate up in just outside of Detroit. He is a big, 6'4", 6'5", 200-something pound guy, but he can run. He's got those pro style attributes, but he can really, do some things with his feet as well. I believe he has a couple Big Ten offers. He's just starting to heat up. I know Minnesota offered, Indiana, Kansas, Maryland. Those are all recent offers. He was more of a MAC level recruit up until recently. And I like his upside. I like what I see on film. And, I believe he has Wisconsin listed on his Rivals page as one of the teams of interest that has not offered. So I think he's a guy that they might want to take a dig and look a little deeper at if they haven't already. So he is a guy that, for me, in the Midwest would probably be next man up. And then you got Drew Viotto, and he's committed to Eastern Michigan right now. But he did get a Maryland offer. He is a heck of a kid. I love him personally as a kid. He's very bright. I saw him at a camp recently, did a really good job, accurate kid. Goes through all his reads, quick, compact release, pretty good arm strength, kid who could be the face of the program. So he's another guy, like I said, he's committed to Eastern Michigan. I've talked to him, even though he's gotten some, Power 5 offers. He seems pretty dialed into Eastern Michigan. But, you get a kid like him down on a game day to Camp Randall and see what that's all about. You never know what will change. So, those would be the 2 Midwest guys that I could see them targeting. But Brady's uncommitted right now, and he's just starting to blow up. So he might be a good guy to get in on the front end because I only see his recruitment going up from here.
And then last question, talking more recruiting, obviously, here with Clint Cosgrove of Rivals.com. Looking at Wisconsin, we have seen, I've watched spring practices and Saturdays, and other days too, but Saturdays in particular have been huge for recruiting and whatnot. We saw CJ Carr, 2024 quarterback, come in. We saw, other players come in this past weekend with, obviously a huge recruiting weekend during the spring, especially on a weekend. And you've seen who's leading those efforts. It's Mickey Turner, the former tight ends coach, former Badger football player. And in your eyes, how do you see Mickey being different from other head of recruiting? He doesn't necessarily have a title yet, so I don't know if I can call him a recruiting coordinator or whatnot, but how do you see Mickey being different from other head of recruiting, in other Big Ten or other, national programs?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really like about Mickey, and I don't know him very well, but I know he's a high energy guy. I know he's a guy that can connect with recruits. The thing that I really do like is he has been a coach. He has been on the road recruiting. He knows how that works. He knows the politics behind, in the staff room when guys stand on the table saying, we need this guy. Coaches are fighting for guys in their area that they're familiar with, especially if it's at their position. A lot of the time with recruiting and personnel guys, they didn't grow up on the coaching side. They've been more kind of analytics, organizational, and that sort of thing. So what Mickey brings to the table is, he's lived it. He's been on the road. He's recruited these kids. He knows what it takes. And he understands the coach's point of view. When they come to him and say something or, needs help with an evaluation or whatever it may be, he's not just speaking from what he has heard from coaches or, read about or seen, from a 30,000-foot view. He's lived it. And I think there's a lot of the time there can be a big disconnect between recruiting coordinators, personnel guys who have not been on the road, who have not recruited, and don't know what it's like to go into a high school, don't know what it's like to sit down with that family and eat dinner, and what it takes to not only identify and evaluate, but bring guys in. And so he'll be able to, there might be a transition as far as the organizational part where a lot of these recruiting coordinators that you see around who haven't had experience on the road, there might be a little learning curve with that. But obviously, he's lived it, he's done it. And I think that's a big added value. If he's able to, do all the in-house stuff, and they've added guys like Alva Hansborough, who I played with, another Edgewood grad, who I know will do a great job. He was a defensive analyst last year, working with the defensive backs. So they're surrounding him with a team, and he's lived it. So I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the biggest added value that you have there. And you've got somebody finally dedicated to recruiting. And that is huge. You have to have somebody dedicated to recruiting. And like I said, just his background, and he's lived it. And I think that is huge for Wisconsin. I think it's huge for their recruitment. And I think it will pay dividends for sure.
Excellent. Clint, what do you got going on this week? I know you talked about it. Going ahead in Indianapolis, nice, 3.5-hour drive from your home. What can recruiting, nuts what should we expect coming up from you here on Rivals.com with another camp very close to home?
Yeah, it'll be a little different for me this time. I've been traveling to Dallas, LA, all these places where maybe, I've heard of some of these top recruits. I've watched film. We've done rankings meetings, gone over them. These are all guys, not all of them, but majority that I will know I've seen in person and I have strong opinions about. And then now others on our national analyst team will get a chance to see them too. We'll see if those opinions line up, and hopefully some of the guys that I count on having big performances there, they will, and that will be a good thing. Like I said, a lot of Wisconsin targets will be there. Guys like Jeremiah Love, Tyler Gant. There's a number of guys, Amarion Stewart, that will be there. And so I'm excited to see those. So there will be a lot of good information next week coming out that will be pertinent to, Badger fans. Talk about, camp MVPs, guys who stood out, a lot of video of competition. So give a closer look at what you're getting out of some of these guys that Wisconsin has offered and is recruiting. So I think it'll be a lot of fun for, Badger fans to pay close attention to the content that we produce after this camp.
Excellent, Clint, man. This is part one. We're going to have part two dropping later this week, man. Looking forward. I'll be talking in just a little bit, but thank you again and once again for your time.
Always a pleasure, my man.
All right, folks. Like I said, we're dropping this one in just later this afternoon. We're recording on a Wednesday afternoon. We're having this probably up by 3 or 4 p.m. Coming up, then we'll have another second part that'll be released later this week, probably on Friday, as spring ball wraps up too. So, folks, tune in just a little bit. We got tons of interviews. We just uploaded just a few of them. Vito Calvaruso, Amon Williams, Kohl, some Badgers that could be contributors this year. So listen then there. I'll have articles up later this week as well. Tune in just a little bit here on BadgerBlitz TV. We got more coming up as well. So stay tuned. Thank you again for listening and watching.